By my reckoning, I've had 4 close shaves. Remarkably close shaves in my estimation, but not quite near-death experiences, even though, at the time, I wondered. And that's not including that bright sunny day when walking through Moscow in minus 24 degrees Celsius for a couple of hours, when I realised I was actually freezing on the inside, not just the outside. My systems seemed to be closing down, so I had to go into a warm place with my son Chris and sip soup slowly for a couple of hours whilst I thawed out. Fortunately, an experience never repeated. So, firstly, when I was 22, I awoke in the middle of a perfectly normal night's sleep, scarcely able to draw breath. My throat and chest seemed to have locked shut. I couldn't even raise the energy to panic. Not a great feeling, so what do? Well, I managed to crawl out of bed and bend over a wash basin, trying to force something in or out, but no joy. So I laid face down on the carpet, trying to do the same, and I had a little success. Then a little more, and I managed to start coughing up large balls of phlegm, and things slowly returned to normal, with me clutching onto all the gods I knew, being very grateful. I really thought that the end might have come. But why and what was it? It happened again, not quite as severely, whilst at work a short time afterwards, and I was more or less carried to the Royal Hospital in Sheffield, which was fortunately straight across the road from my office on West Street, where I was taken in for tests and observation. Allergy tests were part of this regime, and my arm was pricked with many a needle to see what I might be allergic to. Cat gave a reaction, cat hair, and house dust was the winner. A huge reaction. I can't remember being given anything other than a few tablets and the appropriate inhalers and sent on my way, and I've been inhaling ever since, when necessary. There have been no major incidents since, and if anything, those have been when cat hairs were in close proximity. We didn't even have a cat in our house. I really thought that my time had come that night. What brought it on? The only coincidental change in my environment around that time was an old harmonium that I'd bought, which will inevitably have been full of 100-year-old dust, let loose when I was pumping the bellows with my feet. Had I inhaled something that triggered my reaction? I don't know, but I do remember the sheer helplessness of not being able to draw breath and trying to stay calm. Secondly, and only a few years later, Sue and I were in Rome, enjoying a husband's and wife's long weekend away as a work prize from the company I was with. Sue was pregnant with our first, and so was the recipient of everyone's sympathy and helpfulness. We were staying in a nice hotel close to the top of the Spanish Steps, perfectly central for many major sites and not far from any of the others. Having enjoyed a formal lunch on the Saturday, which included a chicken dish, we taxied over to the Colosseum, as you do, and we were heading back after our visit when I began to get those stomach gripes, which tells you to get to a toilet as soon as possible. The taxi driver was asked to get back to the hotel as fast as he could, something an Italian taxi driver finds impossible to resist. I made it to the bathroom just in time. I was stuck in the bathroom for what seemed like an eternity, being held in place between the sink and the toilet. I was going downhill fast. This was food poisoning of the first degree. I eventually made it to the bed where I lay, being ministered to by Sue, who must have been thinking the worst. I drifted in and out of sleep. The celebratory dinner was going on downstairs by this time, with anyone missing me thinking I'd obviously had too much to drink and was sleeping it off. If only. Eventually, my manager made it to the room to find out how I was, and could see the problem at first hand, and said he'd be back in a few minutes, which, indeed, he was, with a glass of an alcoholic herbal spirit remedy by the name of Fernie Branca. He suggested that this would settle my stomach and bowels, which amazingly it did. Come the next day, I was out of bed eventually, while Sue went to St. Peter's Square to see the Pope and presumably to say a little prayer for me. I made it down to the evening meal. I survived that, and by the Monday, when we were all due to fly back to England, I felt renewed, a total clear out of anything which could be cleared out, and mighty pleased to feel so well. I can't remember whether anyone called for an ambulance or doctor at that time, but I was okay in the end and have not had a repeat experience. Undercooked chicken, a fly who'd walked across it, no one else suffered the same problem, so I'll blame a rogue Italian fly. The third close shave is already the subject of a story on this channel called On the Rocks, but to paraphrase this, many, many years ago when I rode my bike, I tended not to wear a helmet. On this particular day, my helmet, hanging on the garage wall, caught and held my eye, as if trying to tell me something. Now I know a helmet can't do this, but I can't explain this very strange phenomenon any better. So I put the helmet on, went for a ride along the coastal footpath near home, stopped at the top of a very low cliff with the intention of scrambling down the few feet to the shoreline on this lovely sunny afternoon. This I did, but what I didn't see was that a large rock that I decided to put my feet on was covered in some slippery substance, and my feet went instantly from under me with my head whipping back against the rock hard. If I hadn't have been wearing my helmet, I would have undoubtedly have knocked myself out and slid down potentially into a watery grave. As it was, I did have my helmet on, and I only suffered a dent on the helmet and a slight headache for my indiscretion. Yes, I had my helmet on, but who or what persuaded me to put my helmet on before I left the garage on my bike? I have no answer, but it undoubtedly saved my life. And finally, still on the subject of cycle riding, I had been knocked off only once when a car turned into the main road I was riding down, having not seen me in my bright high-vis. He blamed being temporarily blinded by a low sun, and his car hit my back wheel such that I lost control and fell off at 15 miles an hour. But in the lane that I was riding in, not the best things ever happened to me, but if this car had hit me literally a few milliseconds before it did, he would have caught me fully side on, and I would have been slapped straight across the road into the traffic coming the opposite direction at 30 miles an hour plus. It might well have been the end of me, squashed under the wheels of a bus that was passing at the time. I only suffered cuts and bruises in the end. The paramedic who had the decency to tell me that I had beautiful calf muscles was my friend, and she cleaned the blood off. I feel remarkably lucky there have been no lasting damage as a result of any of these experiences, nor do I suffer recurring nightmares. I just wonder why I was spared when things could easily have gone the other way. I must still be here for a purpose.